This is Geeks Represent, where we talk about representation and issues that matter to us geeks. We are
Daryl,
Joe,
Sean,
and I'm Marshall, your host. We've talked a lot about race when it comes to casting choices in movies and television. And aside from some missteps, cough cough, my wife and kids, we are seeing more diversity and representation in the last few years. However, things can still be better, especially when it comes to the divisions between light-skinned and dark-skinned members of the same ethnic communities. So let's talk about colorism. So geeks, what is colorism and how is it different from racism?
was there a My Wife and Kids reboot that I missed out on?
Yeah, I was gonna say that was an old reference, man.
It's still a reference nonetheless. Claire went from one type of Claire who was dark-skinned to then a light version as Claire in the second season. Like, Claire, you look different. Really? I don't know. Is it your hair? Mic drop.
How old is My Wife and Kids though? Because
Don't matter. They did the same thing with Fresh Prince.
Yeah, but I said last few years, man.
That is the last few years. It just got on Hulu.
I think Junior
that is not the last few years.
It is to me because I love that show.
I guess.
It's the greatest. Well, Joe, how about you start us off then?
Fine. Well, I'm just saying, like, what was the question? Okay. So
You wrote the script.
you got the notes. Brown paper bag test. Go.
I didn't write that.
That was me.
So Daryl, you start.
Get him, Daryl.
So basically, colorism, you can say it's just another level of discrimination, often between people of the same race or outside of the race, but basically based off of either the darker or lighter the shade of your skin. Even if you're all still of color, people may discriminate against you or have certain different privileges. Case in point, there is a thing called the brown paper bag test. Because, I mean, a brown paper bag, like thing you get at a grocery store, like a lunch bag and stuff like that. It's a fairly light brown paper bag. And so people would basically hold up a paper bag and say, if you're lighter than this tone, go ahead, you can come on in. If you're darker, go on out. And you can see that might be somewhat troubling. This happened. There was a party at Yale that this is from Henry Louis Gates Jr. And there was basically a party at Yale where, and this is in the 60s, where this happened. This other black students held this party and turned people away. And so generally, I guess in the African American community, it's more like, hey, this person is more white than another person that's coming from, well, straight from Africa, if you will. And there's like roots in that from like, hey, if you're lighter skinned, probably meant you have a white person in your family, or how should I say, white slave owners having sex with black slave, producing a lighter skinned baby, and that kid being in the house. I mean, kept in the house because he's not as black as the other slave kids and whatnot.
The more visually appealing, I guess.
Yeah. And there has been some trends that have changed, but people being more light-skinned have been like societally are seen as like more desirable, if you will. So, that's my long-winded explanation.
Not just skin tones too, right? Because I feel like looking at 90s stuff and seeing like, for example, like we were talking like Fresh Prince earlier, a lot of the women that were featured were usually not just light skin, but straighter hair or not as curly, or just white traits that you associate with white people. And it's not just black people either, because you do see it in like roles that are for characters who are Asian, and they tend to steer towards Hapas, right? Or like Asian people who are part white or have like white features, and they don't necessarily like Ross Butler. Think of someone like Ross Butler, right? He looks you would never mistake him for not being Asian, but he clearly has like like that jawline, like different facial features that are more similar to like a white person, which kind of like delves even deep like to colorism, not just like the shape, like kind of makes the argument that white is like the top beauty standard, right? Which is bullshit, but
Yeah, I was gonna go off of what Joe and Daryl said for sure, because like it is definitely a Eurocentric beauty standard that kind of got pushed onto us as a result of colonialism and just like white people trying to prove that white is right. And I know in usually in a bunch of Asian cultures, lighter skin was usually historically seen as being more well off. You're not someone who works in the field, so you're usually of more royal blood, while darker skin usually were uneducated and peasants. So I feel like it's definitely been around for a long, long time before even interacting with Europe for Asia. But then I feel like it just like got pushed to the next level as Europe like became a world power, and a lot of like you'll see a lot of Asians trying to copy like white features, like he said, Joe, where they have like double eyelid surgery or they bleach their hair and all that stuff too. And even they have like even skin lightening creams over in Asia too, to try and be lighter than you really are. And yeah, I mean, it goes deep because there's discrimination even amongst your own community / race.
Mm-hmm.
And then also it affords different, I guess, privileges to some people if they end up looking even white passing, for sure.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I could see that really hurting someone like say because have you ever heard about like Korean hiring practices? Like it has to include your photo, and I feel like that's such a foreign concept in the United States, where you turn in your resume, it only has like your job details, but in South Korea you have to have like your photo included. So I imagine like if you're happen to be someone of like a darker complexion, like they can look at that and they won't say it, but they could totally turn you away from a job if that happens, right? It's like sucks. Colorism sucks.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah.
You have any examples of colorism, Joe? What you got?
You talking like in general or like from like movie examples, movie and TV examples?
Well, let's start with movie and TV examples and then go to general.
Sure. So like it sucks because it was such a groundbreaking movie in a lot of ways, but I'm thinking about Crazy Rich Asians. And for those who've seen or have not seen it, it takes place in Singapore, right? And it's really cool because you see, like, it's one of the biggest, like, it was like an American-made movie, right? It was like a huge Asian cast, which is great. But what sucks is that it's in Singapore. I guess they made it look like everyone was more or less like East Asian, or everyone was like look Chinese. But the thing is, Singapore has a lot of different ethnic groups living there, right? Or even within that group, like not all people in Singapore are gonna look light skinned, or whatever. There's a lot of dark skinned people living in Singapore as well, but the cast of Crazy Rich Asians doesn't really reflect that. And there's even like there's a good amount of like South Asian people and Southeast Asian people, like people from the Philippines, or just people from Malaysia, or like they tend to be darker skinned, or they can be. You don't see that, so that was a little interesting to see, and even made worse if you think about it, because most of the cast that you see are all like the wealthy, and I guess that kind of is part of it too. Like generally, the wealthy and or good people, like good Asian characters in Asian movies, tend to be light skinned, and dark skinned people tend to kind of be in like either in the background, if at all. right? And another example I can think of actually right now before I forget is Bridgerton too, the first season, which I think they're trying to correct in the second season because you see like there's a lot of like I checked it out. They're South Asian like dark skinned South Asian characters. I think the main female lead for the second season is Tamil, but in the first season, you couldn't help but notice that most of the black cast were light skinned, except for one, the Duke's asshole of a father, and the other only like dark skinned black person I can remember is the poor boxer. Everyone else who was black and wealthy were pretty light skinned, so if they were nice people, and I feel like that's a trope that happens a lot in casting, like in America too, right? Like look at Tyler Perry movies with like. If the female lead has like an asshole of a boyfriend or fiance or something, he's usually dark skinned, and the guy who like sweeps in and sweeps her off her feet and saves her is usually a light skinned, like Jesse Williams, Michael Ealy looking guy, right?
100%. Yep. He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Well, yeah, as well, yeah.
I mean, it's pretty prevalent, like even outside of like movie and TV roles, like in the media, like when you look at examples of, let's say, Brazilians or like Indian people or
Filipinos and Mexicans.
Yeah, Mexicans or a lot of Latin people from even the islands. Like if they show like an example of like, oh, what a beautiful person it is, always like the light skin representation and never like any of the tanner people who you would definitely see because you're outside all day. It's the tropics. It's awesome, man. Like, why would you be outside? So you definitely, it's definitely like really fed to us a lot, even outside of TV, just even magazines and stuff or news.
I agree with that.
I was gonna say even like if you look at magazine articles, because I was trying to look up, I was googling examples as well, and even with like dark skinned or darker skinned like African American women, I saw like a lot of like magazines and advertisements who will intentionally like bleach, right? Like make that person look lighter. Like they take like Beyonce or Kerry Washington out of lighting. They try to make them look lighter skinned, which I guess to them is attractive.
Yeah.
But
like who is it? Lupita Nyong'o? She's a beautiful African American woman. And she came into the highlight after she came out of some films, but like before then, like we have Viola Davis. They're on the tip of my tongue. I forget them sometimes too. But it's like when they look at beauty, look at women, they should be light skinned because it's more appealing to them. And the same can be said for black men too. Like in society, when I'm fairly dark skinned, I'll say it. I'm fairly dark skinned. But like when I like go out and I'm like having fun with my friends and like I'll have my buddy with me who's lighter than me, he'll be getting all the women, no matter what, And it's like, I could ruin his flow and his game, but it's like, nah, I don't want to do that. And it's like, oh, why is he getting all the girls? Like, because they find him more attractive because he's lighter. Don't matter that he ain't got no job and he got a horrible bad credit. That's on them to figure that out. They're like, yeah, they'll find out eventually. Like, who's your friend? Like, oh, that's my boy. Go talk to him. Like, oh, okay. It's like, yeah.
Find out too late.
Find out eventually.
Oh, they'll find it. But yeah.
Do you think it's the same between men and women? Or do you think it's more forgiving for men to be darker because, more masculine or, whatever. And like women are supposed to be more like, I don't know, dainty, I guess, fragile, porcelain, if you will.
I honestly don't know because my mother is very fair skinned and my dad was very dark skinned. My mom was like the fairest on her side of the family, and she had to deal with a bunch of shit. But my mom was also like a tomboy, so she beat the shit out of people. She didn't give a shit. She was not dainty. She's like, he gonna say something but a square up. And I was like, that's my mommy.
All right.
But I can see that because I have a lot of cousins who are female and they're darker, they're dark skinned, and they say like, how come guys don't want to talk to me? And I'm like, well, it's not because like, what do you think? Like, is it because I'm too dark? Like, No, it's because your dad's right behind you with a baseball bat. But, that's besides the point. That's besides the point. And also, I'm over here in that other picture just staring him down, too. But, it's because of that. But, Daryl, what about you? Because Daryl, you and I are about the same complexion, honestly. Yeah, milk chocolate. Shout.
Just about. I have the nice look of someone who doesn't go outside but still black. Still, I think that back on Joe's question, just from observation, I feel like there is a whole thing about like light skin, or people with lighter skin tones getting tan.
Yeah.
And that being seen as more appealing, I guess, both with men and women. But I feel like more with men, but I'm not the best judge of that. But just like, the stereotypical model look appears to be guy with long, flowing locks of hair and tan, sun-kissed, I guess is the term, skin.
Yeah. Something like that, like a Fabio look,
something like that, or maybe not as muscular. Maybe
the kind of guy you'd see on the cover of a supermarket romance novel.
But I do feel like I've heard. Well, let me speak more definitively. I'm just thinking about our president, Barack Obama, and
love you, Barack.
I mean, he is a Isle of Billions, and the fact that, I mean, he's the first black president, which was basically the premise of a Chris Rock comedy like 10 years before that. In Head of State. It's amazing.
I remember.
But
it was a fantasy then. It was considered like it wouldn't have happened ever.
Yeah. Like the reason why he was able to be on the ticket was because like they already went through the primaries and everything. But I think the person that was running died, and they just needed the points of one to take his place. So like all the previous campaigning work was already done.
Yeah.
But all that to say, I know people have stated that if he was darker skinned, maybe not as many people would have voted for him in like Middle America.
Yeah, I've heard the same thing from like I think I was watching a documentary like Killer Mike, right? He was talking about that, and he was saying like when people say, "Oh, we have a black president," and he was like half black, and it seemed to indicate like, yeah, like you said, if both his parents had been black and he was of a darker complexion, he might not gotten, like you said, as many votes from people.
And granted,
you think that's true?
He's black enough to be harassed by the police if he gets
that's what I like to.
Yeah.
That's what I like to say, because this isn't to say, like, colorism is definitely a problem, but this isn't to take away from the experiences of biracial people. You know, like there are a lot of privileges that, you know, if you're lighter skinned, or if you're like half white or half any other race that just makes you like lighter, then there are some privileges, but I don't want to say anyway that'll take away from like experience, because like Daryl was saying, what kind of matters is what race are you to a cop when they first look at you, right? So
and that's not all that matters, but
yeah, that's not all that matters, but you know, a life or death situation. Right. Like,
yeah,
that's true. I wanted to kind of bring back up Marshall's point about Lupita and like how she's like rocking it now. I feel like another kind of tragedy of what's kind of propagating colorism, I feel like, is the lack of like really good black photographers. Like
Mm.
you didn't really
Yeah.
see someone like do the black, like a dark skin tone justice until like Simone Biles like recently did that photo shoot. And like
That's true.
that was like, this is how you do it, people. Because like a lot of photographers do not know what they're doing when it comes to shooting tanner people. Like they don't know the fucking white balance or anything or whatnot. And like even just to like just not drown out with the background and stuff like that. They don't know how to pop that out. So I think with like, as we get more like really talented photographers, like especially diverse ones coming up, I think that might start changing soon, hopefully.
Oh yeah. Daryl Marshall, did like for your yearbook photos growing up, like your class photos, did you have bad experiences with photographers?
I mean, it wasn't too bad for me. I don't know about you, Daryl, but it was just like the background was blue. They just said don't. You could smile, just do anything stupid or anything. So I was just like the classic, like that type of shit. But like it made my color show up a little bit. But if I came back from like a vacation, like where I was on the beach, I would like Wesley Snipes dark. So yeah.
Have we talked about or mentioned like the whole racial bias that's kind of built into the history of film development, like photography or anything like that?
I don't think so.
That's a good thing to bring up for sure.
I don't think
Enlighten us. No,
we haven't brought it up, but you can go ahead and explain it.
Yeah. So basically, and John, correct me if I'm getting any details off, but like when like filming, when like color pictures and like film was being like produced and developed, they only really use like white models when they're taking pictures. And so like standard photos and this like color balance and things like that were all just based off of people with light skin. So when a black person gets their picture taken, it doesn't look quite right. It looks either like washed out or like they're just not lit well or just not clear. And I think this came to my attention when there was an article talking about how Insecure was shot and how they did like a lot of their night scenes or scenes in like dark areas and how special attention was taken to the lighting in that aspect. I'll put a link to the article where I saw all this stuff in the show notes if you guys want to check it out. But yeah, it's one other racist history that we could look into. Yeah. I'll admit
how to ruin your day.
I just type in racist history of into Google and look at the autocompletes, and you can just have a feel.
Oh, that's a challenge. That's a challenge.
Yeah. I don't remember if it was an article or a video that I read that, but I do, recall seeing that information that it was definitely made for white people at first, and that's why it's kind of ingrained.
The standards are all which is why if you are ever getting like married and the people in your group or something or in the photos are going to be black, get yourself a black photographer for sure. For like I think it was it was a good idea getting a black photographer who knew what they were doing and, like you said, like could actually think about the backdrop and it's not just gonna come out with like, oh, me in a what essentially is a shadow, right? So
hashtag you look great in your wedding photos, Joe.
Oh, thank you.
Shut up, Joe.
Fuck you.
I love you.
Why did you follow it up?
That was the most tsundere thing I've seen in my entire life.
Baka. I'm not doing it because I like you, asshole.
Oh my goodness.
I love you.
Whatever.
Yeah. Or even like how film is being shot now, with it being done so many ways. Hopefully that will also change. So yeah, as we get like more Black directors and filmographers and stuff like that.
Is it true? Like, have you guys seen the trailer for Nope yet? Jordan Peele's next horror movie.
Yeah.
Do you think it's true? Nope.
I haven't
No, you haven't.
I want to see it.
There's a snippet at the beginning of the trailer where she's saying like the first like image of a moving picture, like essentially like the first film clip ever, was of a Black man riding a horse. Do you think that's true at all?
I mean, it could be.
Yeah. I have to look that up, but that's true. Like after that, they didn't conform to lighting standards with him afterwards.
I know, like one of the earliest movies was just someone walking or riding a horse or something like that.
Yeah, but that's also black and white, which is a little different from I think what we were talking about when they introduced color.
Yeah, probably.
Film. Yeah,
I could see that. Maybe they just wanted a black. If it is true, they just wanted a black person to like highlight the contrast or whatever to make it seem you could see it clearly.
Like a nice silhouette.
Yeah. I don't know. It really sucks that that's kind of become like the prevalent like standard. Lighter to better. But I'm glad that it's changing. Being not to take away from like the Zendayas and the Natalie Emmanuels and Tessa Thompson's, Ruth Neggas of the world, right? But like it's nice that we have. Yeah, it reminds me of apparently. Do you remember like Amanda Stenberg was approached for the role of Shuri in Black Panther, and she willfully turned it down because she said she thought it should go to, if it's a character from Africa, it should go to someone with darker complexion, and that was when it went to Letitia Wright, for better or worse. But that's aside, Letitia Wright's other issues, but still, like it's nice that people are like actors and actresses are cognizant of it, and are trying to like subvert it, not to try to take away like the opportunities for, because there's so actors of color, right? Not a lot of opportunities go to them still, but and it's not that they're not talented actors, but it's nice to know like people like Lupita Nyong'o, as well, or I forgot her name, but she was fantastic in Bruised with Halle Berry. There's a Netflix movie where she's like an MMA fighter, and the actress for her trainer is drop dead gorgeous and similar complexion to someone like Lupita Nyong'o. But then again, I feel like we had people like that, like Naomi Campbell, right? Who ironically is half Black, but also half Chinese, but she's of darker complexion. She's Naomi Campbell. Like she's drop dead gorgeous. So, but still, like, I think people are a lot more aware these days.
Yeah. I feel like the solution or transition out of it is similar to like what we've been reiterating in like a lot of our episodes, which is like just have more people write stories that would naturally involve them, or like Daryl and I were talking about the switch from a certain style of film to a newer, more updated color version, or photography that reflects that as well. So I think it's at least looking up, hopefully.
No, for sure. Like, you're definitely right. Like, have more movies, have more TV shows with a bigger, diverse cast, and then you'll have people of all kinds of shades. Like look at like Amazon Prime's Harlem, right, featuring like 4 Black women of varying skin tones and varying body types, even sexualities, make it diverse, or The Harder They Fall, right? Like almost all Black cast, so you can have like and not necessarily like the darker skinned people are the villains either, or the lighter skinned people are the heroes. Like just all over the place. If you do that you're like Sean said, that does help combat that a little bit. Versus something like Game of Thrones, where you have like 2 black people, and again, one of them is Natalie Emmanuel, gorgeous woman, but you know what I'm saying. Like they were the only 2.
Yeah,
with like speaking parts.
Yeah, and Grey Worm barely spoke, so whatever.
That's fair.
Yeah, I mean that's why we like The Wheel of Time and The Witcher.
Yeah,
and what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because they're
This is
showing
true.
awesome examples of just good-looking people of all colors and shades and everything.
Mm-hmm. Not elves are not all white. Can't wait for that too. Like the Witcher spinoff, Blood Origin, with like Michelle Yeoh as an elf. But yeah, like it's still a problem. Like what sucks though is as much as like in the US is changing, but I feel like it's harder for like the rest of the world, because you still see in like Bollywood, or at least I do in the Bollywood realism subreddit.
Yeah.
But but it is a common problem. It's still a persistent problem today, where like in Bollywood, again, the villains are the darker skinned, like South Indian people, and the heroes tend to be like the attractive light skinned North Indian.
Yeah. I mean, even their industry is separated between like North and South India a lot too. So like you'll have a lot of just South Indian
caste
films,
system.
that are just appealing to the demographic. Because it's still pretty. That caste system is pretty strong over there.
Yeah, it is. And I feel like it's so ingrained in the culture, or that's just reality to them, right?
Yeah, I mean, this has existed for thousands of years.
Yeah.
For them.
Daryl, when you were describing the brown paper bag test, it reminded me of like Family Guy, where the cop flips out the color scale when he pulls a guy over.
And he pulls over Peter's like, "Oh, you're good." It's like terrorist good. I'm like, wow.
Like any darker past this line is like, nope, shoot him.
Mm-hmm.
It's fucked.
So wait a minute, you're that new black guy, yeah? All right, go ahead.
Or like, you remember it was on Hulu. It was funny. I liked it. The show Woke.
Lamar Morris.
Yeah, and there's a scene, or actually, it's a running trend. Like, so he's getting good press, and the more good press he's getting, the pictures of him are like, they kept getting lighter and lighter.
Yeah,
but then when people are trying to cancel him, or like he said something bad and like gets bad press, it gets darker and darker. And he's like, look at it, he's like, what the fuck?
Like, what is this?
Like, I don't know what I got.
You don't see a problem with this. I don't know what you're talking about. You look really good. I'm darker as shit. You OJ'd me. I'm like, OJ'd you.
Even like the security, like they gave the picture to security, like, look out for this guy, don't let him in. It was like the blackest, like the darkest.
They made him so dark.
It's like, yo, blatant this is.
It's like, damn.
Like it's satire. It's supposed to be absurd, but I'm like, how often does this actually this does happen? It's based on reality, Again, like we were saying, like ads. Do you remember that joke? There was a meme of like I think it was 2018 and 2016. It was about like advertisements, and they were saying like there's a running trend, more black people in ads, but they're always the light skin, like not necessarily straight hair, but like not super curly either, just like a nice like I forget the categories for the type of curl, but yeah, they always say like black but not too black, like, hey, progress.
Yeah.
Goodness.
I think it was like a 2016 commercial starter pack. So at least one black woman and not too black either.
Did y'all see the it's kind of a crossover between previous couple topics, but do y'all see the Super Bowl ad for I think it's a Pixel 6 or so.
Yeah.
I don't remember it.
So basically, if you haven't seen it, or if this is like you're listening to this like 7 years after the 2022 Super Bowl, there was their advertising feature called Real Tone was supposed to use AI to capture the actual skin tone of people of color with their camera. So
does it work?
I mean,
is it?
That's brave of them.
If someone wants to buy me a Pixel 6 Pro, then I'll take it. I'll take it for a spin. But another adventure of Google is when I was searching for Pixel phone camera. One of the results was Pixel phone racist camera. And so it's like, come on.
Yeah.
Not just mentioning race is not racism.
No. Although I will say, is this the reason why recognition, like camera, like recognition, face recognition technology for like, when the government wants to spy on you, it's harder for them to track like black people or whatever? Do you remember like in China, they tried to test it out and it was like extremely racist. Like it kept identifying like
black people as gorillas.
As the same person. Yeah.
I mean,
that is both a disadvantage and an advantage if you're trying to, lay it under the radar.
Goodness.
What if you're robbing a bank, man? Like,
Oh my god.
People tracking you.
They're already tracking us anyways.
They are.
So Joe, are you saying that if you're a dark-skinned person in China, you should go ahead and rob a bank?
I mean, they're gonna think you did it anyway. They're racist as shit over there.
Jesus. Oh my god. Anybody got some last thoughts before we put a bow on her?
I mean, you were saying like it crossovers with past topics. I just wanted to say it's all related. Yeah. Everything is connected. Nothing lives in a bubble. It all stems from, well, interesting enough, I was gonna say from like white like Eurocentric imperialism, but like Sean said, it's even older than that. Psychologically, it's strange.
Joe sound like fucking like Mufasa. Everything, we are all connected. Boy, I had to throw a rubber ball at your ass.
If you threw a rubber ball at my ass, you would only be throwing it at your ass because we are connected, Marshall.
Stupid.
If I find you're allergic to a peanut, I will eat peanut butter.
No, what? That's fucked up.
But I love you, Joe.
The Buddha would disapprove of yours.
The Buddha says, if I put powder on one hand and then do a
plus 10 poison damage.
Yeah, right.
Oh man,
powder.
You hate me so much.
I love you so much.
It's HP drain.
Thank you. Same, man. But
not with that beanie on your head. Probably not.
Fuck off. I love this beanie.
It is 85 in your apartment right now.
No, it's not. It's ice cold. My wife is having hot flashes.
I will text your wife right now, and she will tell me what the thermostat's saying.
No, she ain't getting up out of bed. Not right now.
He planned for it too. He planned for it.
So, that was my
Fear
plan.
of the mind.
Yeah.
Oh my Jesus!
So I think we may have hit the end of this episode pretty hard.
As we tend to.
I have some further thoughts on this topic, but we can.
Yeah, I don't know thoughts except
I'll close this
does
out
not
then.
determine beauty. That's my last thoughts.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in to Geeks Represent. If you enjoyed this discussion, subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and everywhere podcasts can be found. If you want to add to our discussion, visit geeksrepresent.com. Thanks for listening and sharing with your friends. We're out.